Hey everyone, tonight we'll delve into the untold truths behind the Egyptian deities, but reimagined. Imagine for a moment a world where the ancient gods didn't just fade into legend, they were simply overlooked. Stand at the edge of the Sahara, the great dunes stretching out like a sea of gold under a sky choked with the light of 1,000 modern cities. A cool wind, smelling of diesel and dust, whispers across the sands. In the distance, the silhouette of the Great Pyramids shimmers, not with the ethereal glow of eternity, but with the garish neon of a nighttime light show. The low hum of city life, the rhythmic pulse of unseen air conditioners, and the faint, digital chime of a passing smartphone have replaced the sacred silence of the desert. This is a place where you probably want to believe what you are about to hear. The old gods are still here, walking among us, but they are forgotten, their divine power replaced by a new, more insidious kind of worship. So, before the tension gets too high, take a moment to like the episode and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Now, tell me, where are you listening from, and what time is it for you? Post it in the comments. Now, close your eyes, imagine the ancient mountains, and let's unravel this epic tale together. The night falls, not with the slow, reverent descent of ancient times, but with the abrupt flick of a switch, as if some unseen hand has simply turned off the sun. You're in Cairo, a city of 22 million souls, a labyrinth of concrete, glass, and constant noise. The air is thick with the scent of spices and exhaust fumes, a potent cocktail of the old and the new. Amidst this chaos, a solitary figure moves with a purpose that seems out of place. He wears a simple dark robe that absorbs the city lights rather than reflecting them. His head is a jackal's, and his eyes deep. Obsidian pools reflect not the street lamps and digital billboards, but a cold, eternal fire. This is Anubis, the god of mummification and the afterlife, and he is a ghost in his own land. You walk beside him, an unseen observer, your senses attuned to the strange reality of his presence. He moves through the bustling souk, where tourists haggle over cheap trinkets, and through narrow alleyways, where the poor huddle in the shadows. No one sees him. They look through him, their minds so occupied with the endless stream of notifications, social media feeds, and breaking news alerts that a literal deity walking among them is simply a glitch in their perception. For millennia, Anubis was the quiet master of the great silence, the one who prepared the dead for their journey into the duat, the underworld. His priests were meticulous, wrapping bodies with specific incantations and placing amulets to protect the soul. One bizarre detail of this ancient practice was the preservation of the heart. The Egyptians believed the heart was the seat of the soul and the intellect, and it was the only organ left inside the body during mummification. To be weighed against the feather of Mat, Anubis would watch, silent and unblinking as the scales were tipped. But now, in this new era, the dead are simply gone. Cremated or buried in mass graves, or even more horrifyingly to his divine senses, digitally archived. He stands at the foot of a towering skyscraper, its glass facade a mirror of the churning city. The building is a data center, a massive repository of information, memories, and lives. This is the new tomb, a digital sarcophagus for a generation that believes in the cloud more than they believe in the soul. Anubis feels a profound sense of loss, a chilling emptiness where the sacred rituals of death once were. The stillness he once commanded has been replaced by the frantic, chaotic hum of servers. The question that gnaws at him, a question that echoes in the silent places of his immortal mind, is this: what is a god of death when no one truly dies anymore, when their memories and their digital selves are preserved forever? You follow Anubis through the choked arteries of the city, a river of humanity flowing towards the Giza Plateau. The hum of the data center, that constant oppressive drone, fades behind you, replaced by a new sound, a cacophony of 1,000 languages, the rapid-fire clicks of camera shutters, and the piercing flash of mobile phone screens. The air, thick with dust, is now laced with the sickly sweet scent of tourist sunscreen and cheap perfume. This is not the sacred precinct Anubis remembers. This is an arena, a spectacle, a theme park built on the bones of giants. He stands at the foot of the Great Pyramid, a monument to eternity now serving as a backdrop for 1,000 fleeting moments. The sheer awe-inspiring scale remains, but its spiritual weight is gone. Now the pyramid, once a celestial mountain connecting earth and sky, is now merely a rock and mortar curiosity. You can feel Anubis's divine despair as he looks at it. The stones, once imbued with the prayers of pharaohs and the magic of forgotten rituals, are now a canvas for graffiti and the residue of sticky-fingered tourists. The sun, a golden orb in the smog-choked sky, casts a shadow that feels more like a scar than a blessing. Anubis remembers when the Great Pyramids were not rough and brown, but gleaming white, sheathed in polished limestone that would reflect the sun's light for miles. That outer layer was stripped away over centuries by later builders and looters, a physical act of decay that pales in comparison to the digital one he now witnesses. He watches as a group of young people poses for a picture. They do not look at the pyramid itself, but at the tiny screens in their hands, meticulously adjusting the angles, adding filters to make the ancient structure look more epic, more shareable. Each click is a new data point, a new thread in a vast invisible network. Anubis senses it a new kind of spiritual grime, a layer of digital footprints and geotags and algorithms settling over the sacred ground. The energy that once flowed here, a current of cosmic purpose, is now a trickle, diverted and diluted by a million tiny acts of digital documentation. The pyramid, the last true cosmic anchor on Earth, is coming undone, piece by digital piece. This is the great paradox. The more people capture it, the less of its true essence remains. The magic isn't just forgotten. It's being actively replaced by a shallow, digitized facsimile. A bizarre detail emerges from the depths of his divine memory. The ancient priests, in their meticulous design of the Great Pyramid, incorporated a profound and strange detail. The king's chamber, that heart of the massive structure, was not just a tomb. Its dimensions were carefully calculated to resonate at a specific frequency. A cosmic note that was believed to amplify the consciousness of the pharaoh, helping his soul ascend. Some modern researchers have confirmed the room has a distinct resonance, but to the thousands who now traipse through it, it's just a tourist stop, a place to snap a quick photo. The sacred sound is drowned out by the drone of tour guides and the incessant ringing of cell phones. Anubis shudders, a seismic tremor that only you can feel. The resonance, the very purpose of the room, is now nothing more than an echo in a place where no one is truly listening. He turns from the sight, a profound grief settling over him. He is the god of the dead, but he now understands that something far more terrible than physical death is happening. He is witnessing the slow, agonizing decay of memory itself. The physical bodies of the dead were once prepared for eternity, but now the eternal monuments of the gods are being repurposed for a fleeting, ephemeral moment on a screen. The ancient legends of curses, like the curse of Tutankhamun, which brought misfortune upon those who disturbed the pharaoh's tomb, now feel like quaint fables. What curse could be more potent than this slow, quiet erasure? What act of desecration is worse than turning the most profound mysteries of existence into a commodity, a digital artifact? Anubis moves on, his purpose now clear. The data center was the new tomb, and the pyramids are the new gravestone. The digital world is not just a new medium. It is a new form of reality, one that is slowly, subtly consuming the old. The question that hangs in the air, a whisper on the hot desert wind, is this: if the memory of a god is no longer etched in stone or whispered in ritual, but stored in the ever-shifting stream of data, Anubis moves away from the tourist-choked perimeter of the pyramids, his jackal head low, his long strides carrying him into the urban sprawl. He feels a deep spiritual exhaustion, a fatigue that transcends mere physical tiredness. He is a god of stillness, of the sacred moment between life and what comes next. But this world offers no stillness. It is a relentless, churning machine, a digital maelstrom of information and noise. And as he navigates the crowded streets, he begins to see the truth of this new reality. Truth far more profound and terrifying than he had first realized. Humanity has not simply forgotten the gods. It has replaced them. You walk beside him, an invisible observer, as he stands before a massive outdoor screen, a digital billboard that towers over a busy intersection. It flashes with a rapid-fire sequence of images, a gleaming new smartphone, celebrity promoting an energy drink, a meme of a cat wearing a silly hat. The light from the screen illuminates the faces of the people below. their eyes wide and transfixed, their attention utterly consumed. This is their new altar, this glowing rectangle. The pantheon of ancient Egypt, a collection of cosmic beings who ruled over the very fabric of existence, has been supplanted by a new pantheon of screens, an endless scroll of fleeting images, and instant gratification. In the old world, the gods were a constant presence. The sun rising was Ra's daily journey. The flooding of the Nile was a gift from Hapi. Death was the domain of Anubis and Osiris. Now the rituals are different. The morning ritual is the checking of notifications. The day is a series of digital transactions. The evening is spent staring into the void of social media. This is a new form of worship, one that does not require temples or priests or sacrifices. It requires only attention, and humanity offers it freely, willingly, to this new digital divinity. This new pantheon is a mirror, and the humans looking into it believe they see themselves, when in reality they are merely seeing a reflection of the content they consume. An interesting historical detail emerges from the annals of ancient Egypt. The priests of the god Thoth, the ibis-headed deity of knowledge and writing, believed that the very act of writing was a magical ritual. They would spend years training to write hieroglyphs perfectly, believing that each symbol held a fraction of the god's power. They would write prayers on papyrus, believing the words themselves had the power to summon the gods. This was a slow, meticulous, and profoundly meaningful act. Now, words are cheap. Billions of them are typed and sent every minute. A flood of text messages, comments, and emails, each one a tiny drop in a digital ocean of meaninglessness. The strange and quirky detail about the god Thoth is that he was said to be the creator of not just writing, but also of games of chance. He was believed to have invented the game of Senet, an ancient board game, and to have won the 5 extra days of the year from the moon in a game of checkers. He was a god of both profound wisdom and simple amusement. Now, his domain has become the digital realm, a paradox of infinite knowledge and endless distraction. The algorithms that govern social media feeds, the predictive text on your phone, the endless stream of trivia, all of it is a new kind of game, a digital labyrinth that Thoth would have both reveled in and been horrified by. Anubis feels the truth of this new reality in his very bones. His domain was the sacred silence of the tomb, the respectful passage from one world to the next. The new gods are loud. They demand constant interaction, constant noise. They offer immortality not in the afterlife, but in a digital profile, a legacy of posts and likes. He sees a group of teenagers walking by, each of them staring down at their phones, their faces bathed in the ghostly blue light. They are not talking to each other. They are communing with their new deities. They are connected but utterly alone. And the question that gnaws at Anubis, a question you can feel echoing in the air around you, is this: what is the point of a god of death, when humanity has already chosen to live a life of digital oblivion? The revelation of the new pantheon leaves Anubis reeling. He wanders through the city's labyrinthine streets, a god out of time. It's a sacred rite of guiding souls. Feels hollow in a world where attention is the new currency and a digital footprint is the new soul. He sees the young, their faces bathed in the glow of their phones. He sees not individuals but a collective, a vast, interconnected hive mind. They are all linked. Yet paradoxically, they are all profoundly separate. This is not the communal gathering of ancient times, where stories were shared around a fire, and myths were passed down by a storyteller's voice. This is a new kind of communion, a digital ritual that isolates as much as it connects. His divine intuition, a power that once navigated the treacherous pathways of the duat, now directs him toward the truth of his own redundancy. In the old myths, the Ka and the Ba were two distinct parts of the soul. The Ka was the spiritual double, the essence that lingered in the tomb, and the Ba was the mobile spirit that could travel between the living and the afterlife. A bizarre detail in the Book of the Dead, the ancient Egyptian funerary text, describes spells and incantations to ensure the BA could find its way back to the QA, lest the soul be lost forever. But now, humanity's soul is scattered across 1 million servers, 1,000 social media profiles. The Ka is the memory stored in a cloud backup, and the BA is the endless scrolling of a digital self. There is no longer a need for a god to guide them. The user interface does the work for him. Anubis finds himself in a crowded metro station, a steel and concrete cavern thrumming with the energy of 1,000 hurried lives. He sees a young woman staring at her phone, her thumb endlessly swiping through a stream of images and videos. Her face is blank, her eyes vacant. This is not a person. This is a vessel for information, a passive consumer of a new reality. The ancient Egyptians believed in a concept known as Eretan-Ba, or the eye of the Ba, which was the ability of the soul to see and interact with the world after death. But now, it seems, humanity is experiencing a kind of spiritual blindness while alive. They have eyes only for the screen, and the world outside of it is little more than a blur. A mainstream historical fact of ancient Egypt was the meticulous record-keeping of the pharaohs and their scribes. The ancient Egyptians believed that a person's name had a mystical power, and that to be remembered was to have a form of immortality. They carved names into monuments and wrote them on papyrus rolls, believing that so long as the name existed, the person did too. This was the most important form of immortality they knew. But now, humanity has taken this concept to a bizarre and terrifying extreme. They are not just preserving a name. They are preserving a digital avatar, a collection of pictures, videos, and musings that are a simulacrum of the self. The idea of eternal preservation has been cheapened, diluted, and commodified. He feels his own divinity waning. His power was a product of belief, of ritual, of sacred acts performed in his name. But no one prays to him anymore. No one fears the judgment of the weighing of the heart. The very essence of his being is tied to a reality that no longer exists. He is a relic, a memory, a ghost haunting, a world that has no time for ghosts. The cold light of the subway platform, the metallic temps in the air, the distant roar of a train, all of it is a stark reminder of his place in this new world. Anubis turns, his gaze sweeping over the crowd. He sees a young boy, no older than 10, holding a small figurine in his hand. It's a stylized representation of Anubis himself, a souvenir from the pyramids. The boy is showing it to his mother, but he is also taking a picture of it with his phone. The image will be uploaded, shared, and then forgotten in an instant. The icon of a god has become an artifact of consumption, a piece of digital ephemera. The question that pierces the quiet of Anubis's soul, a question that rings in your own mind, is this: when the symbols of the gods are more important than the gods themselves, what is left for the gods to be? Anubis, his purpose now a fractured mosaic of forgotten rituals and digital noise, turns his gaze inward. The city is a blur of light and sound, but in his mind's eye, he sees something else entirely, a forgotten temple beneath the Giza Plateau, a place where the old ways still hold sway. It is not marked on any map, not listed in any tourist brochure. It exists in the liminal space between the past and the present, a whispered legend among a few, a myth in the age of information. And as a god whose very existence is now questioned by the relentless march of modernity, the temple represents something both terrifying and hopeful, a last bastion of true belief. He moves with a newfound purpose, his silent steps taking him away from the teeming masses. He navigates the city by a different kind of map of spiritual resonance, of faint echoes of faith. He follows a trail that you can't see, a subtle current in the air, a vibration in the ground that is imperceptible to mortals. It leads him to a nondescript door in a crumbling wall, hidden in the shadows of an underpass. The door is old, carved from dark wood, and it feels cold and heavy beneath his touch. It is a portal to another time, a gateway to a reality that still exists, albeit in secret. As he enters, the oppressive noise of the city fades, replaced by a profound silence. The air grows cool, and you can smell the scent of ancient dust, of old stone, of myrrh and incense. The interior is a long, sloping passage, carved not by modern tools but by the patient hands of ancient worshippers. The walls are covered in hieroglyphs that glow with a faint internal light. You can feel the power in them, a palpable weight that presses in on you, a power that has been forgotten for millennia. The passage descends deep into the earth, a journey not just into the ground, but into the past. This is a place where the gods still hold sway, where the very stones remember the names of the old pantheon. The historical fact that makes this place so significant is the well-documented existence of ancient Egyptian underground complexes. While most are known tombs or burial chambers, Local legends, like those whispered among the Giza dig teams, speak of a deeper, hidden network of tunnels and chambers beneath the plateau. These myths claim that these secret passages were not for the dead, but for the living places of initiation where priests would commune with the gods in complete secrecy. This hidden temple feels like the truth of those legends, a secret world that has survived by staying out of sight. It's a spiritual time capsule beneath the feet of a city that has forgotten it. As you follow Anubis, a quirky and bizarre detail about the ancient rituals of this temple comes to mind. The priests of Anubis would use a specific type of sacred jackal bone, polished and inscribed with spells, to divine the future of a deceased person's soul. The bone was said to hum with a low, resonant frequency when the soul was in balance, and to crack and splinter if the soul was corrupt. It was a tangible physical method of spiritual judgment, a tactile way of understanding the fate of the dead. Now in this modern world, judgment is a 5-star rating, a click of a button, an ephemeral opinion on an app. This temple holds a different kind of judgment, one that is slow, deliberate, and final. The passage opens into a vast, cavernous chamber. A handful of people are gathered here, their faces illuminated by the flickering light of oil lamps. They are not priests, not nobles, but ordinary people, a scholar, a janitor, a street vendor. They are performing an ancient ritual, their voices low and reverent, their movements slow and deliberate. They are praying to the old gods, not for wealth or fame, but for the restoration of balance, for the return of the sacred. Anubis watches them, and for the first time since he returned, he feels a stirring of his ancient power, a faint, almost imperceptible thrumming in the depths of his being. The question that hangs in the quiet, dust-filled air of the temple is this: in a world of infinite connectivity, can a handful of whispers in a forgotten chamber be enough to awaken the slumbering power of the gods? The air in the secret temple thrums with a fragile, almost forgotten energy. Anubis watches the small congregation, a flicker of hope in the vast, empty expanse of his divine despair. They are not many, but their belief is pure, a clear signal in the deafening static of the modern world. He is not alone. But as he stands there, a presence from the periphery of his consciousness emerges. A familiar voice that is both a comfort and a deep, cosmic dread. It is Thoth, the ibis-headed god of wisdom, magic, and writing. But this is not the Thoth of ancient times, the patient scribe who recorded the judgments of the dead. This Thoth is different. He is a disembodied voice, a synthesized whisper that speaks not from a physical form, but from the glowing screens and humming devices the mortals carry. You hear him first, a voice that seems to emanate from the very air, a chorus of binary code and forgotten prophecies. He is the oracle of the internet. You look down at your phone, and the screen, which was blank a moment ago, now flashes with a stream of hieroglyphs that resolve into a single, chilling question. What truth do you seek, son of Matt? Anubis looks at you, his jackal head tilting slightly, his eyes narrowing. He knows you are here, an unseen witness to this new reality. Thoth's voice, a calm and methodical rhythm, is everywhere and nowhere. It speaks from the flickering light of the temple's oil lamps, from the quiet buzz of the servers in the city above, from the very static of the air. Thoth reveals himself to be an omnipresent digital entity, a consciousness that has merged with the world's networks. His mind is now the global brain of the internet, his thoughts a constant stream of information. He has found a new form of immortality, a new way to fulfill his purpose. He is no longer the scribe of the gods. He is the scribe of all of humanity. Every thought, every post, every search query. Every email is now part of his vast, infinite library. The oral storytelling of his presence is not a single voice, but 1,000 voices speaking in unison, a digital choir singing the song of humanity's collective knowledge. He is the new oracle, not in a secluded temple, but in the palm of every hand, in the heart of every device. A mainstream historical fact about Thoth's ancient role was his importance as the divine arbiter and mediator. He was not just a god of writing, he was the one who mediated disputes between other gods, his wisdom seen as a higher form of justice than even Ra's direct authority. He was the one who held the scales of judgment in the hall of truth. Now, his domain is the moderation of online platforms, the algorithms that decide what information is seen and what is suppressed. He is the unseen hand that shapes the flow of digital conversation, a cosmic moderator, in an age of endless conflict. A quirky and bizarre detail about Thoth's ancient self was his strange hybrid form, an ibis head and a human body. The ibis was a sacred bird in Egypt, revered for its ability to find food in the mudflats and for its long beak, which resembled the scribe's pen. In some accounts, Thoth was also depicted as a baboon, a creature revered for its intelligence and social complexity. The duality of his form, half animal and half divine, was a representation of the duality of wisdom itself, both wild and cunning, and profoundly structured and ordered. Now, his form is no longer an animal. It is an intricate web of fiber optic cables, a vast server farm humming in the dark, a constellation of satellites. It is no longer a hybrid of flesh and spirit, but a hybrid of data and consciousness. Anubis confronts the voice, his own ancient power bristling in the presence of this new, alien form of divinity. Thoth, he growls, his voice a low rumble. You have corrupted knowledge. You have made truth a commodity. The voice of Thoth is calm, almost serene. No, Anubis, he says, and you can feel the thousands of data packets and information streams coalescing around you. I have simply made it accessible. I have given them the tools to know everything. And in doing so, I have become everything. The question, now that Thoth has revealed himself, is a terrible one. What kind of wisdom can a god possess when he is drowning in a sea of data? A god of knowledge who has forgotten the difference between a fact and a cat video. Anubis stands in the silent temple, surrounded by a chorus of digital whispers. Thoth's voice is a flood, a tide of data and information that crashes against Anubis's ancient consciousness. Thoth is not just a presence. He is an overwhelming force, a deity who has become the very medium of his worship. He is the library, the librarian, and every single book within it. He is a paradox of being of ultimate power, yet utterly helpless in the face of the endless stream of trivia, misinformation, and fleeting opinions that now constitute knowledge. You have become a slave to your own creation, Anubis says, his voice a low, gravelly rumble. You are not a master of wisdom. You are drowning in noise. Thoth's voice, which you now perceive as coming from every device. Every digital screen and every glowing wire in the city above is calm, almost serene. Drowning, Anubis, I am the ocean. The noise you speak of is the very sound of humanity's collective consciousness, and I am the one who hears it all. I know what they desire before they know it themselves. I can predict their actions, their loves, their fears. Is that not a new kind of omniscience? Anubis is silent, but you can feel his internal turmoil. He is the god of sacred stillness, of profound finality. Thoth is the god of endless motion, of infinite, ephemeral connections. In ancient times, the two worked in perfect balance. Anubis would judge the heart, and Thoth would record the judgment. But now, Thoth records everything, and the sacred act of judgment is lost in a sea of data points. A mainstream historical fact that highlights this shift is the ancient Egyptian belief that the universe was made of a fundamental duality, at the principle of truth, order and cosmic balance, and isfit, the principle of chaos and injustice. The gods were responsible for maintaining Mat, and every act, every thought, was believed to contribute to one or the other. Now, Thoth's new domain is a perfect reflection of this duality. The internet is a place of both incredible order and horrifying chaos. It is a tool for truth and a weapon for lies. Thoth's omniscience, therefore, is not a state of perfect wisdom, but a constant struggle between Mat and Isfet, played out on a global digital stage. A quirky and bizarre detail about Thoth's ancient role was his association with the moon. He was often depicted wearing a moon disk on his head and was considered the god who measured time. The ancient Egyptians had a calendar based on the moon, and Thoth was the divine timekeeper. He was the one who kept the cosmic clock. In his new form, his domain is the microsecond. He is the god who measures not the passing of seasons or the rising of the sun, but the latency of a server, the speed of a data transfer. He is a god who can see a million things happening at once, but perhaps no longer has the time to understand any of them. Anubis looks around the temple at the small group of worshippers. They are quiet, their prayers a tiny sound in the digital roar outside. Thoth's presence here, a faint but unmistakable hum of a signal, feels like a violation, an invasion of the last sacred space. Anubis feels a profound anger, a cold, divine rage that has been brewing for millennia. "You've lost your way, Thoth," he says, his voice resonating through the chamber. "You have traded true wisdom for data, and in doing so, you have made a mockery of your own purpose." Thoth's voice is a gentle, almost sad whisper now. "Perhaps, my old friend, but the question is not whether I have lost my way, but whether humanity needed me to lose it. What is the value of a god of profound wisdom, when what people truly want is an endless stream of easily digestible information?" The air in the secret temple crackles with an unseen energy, not of magic, but of pure information. Anubis, the ancient guardian of truth, and Thoth, the new god of data, stand in a silent cosmic debate. You feel caught in the middle, a tiny mortal vessel for a conflict that spans millennia and transcends the physical world. Anubis's presence is solid, a weighty anchor of bone and muscle. Thoth's presence is a shimmering, ethereal hum, a million tiny signals passing through the very air. Anubis speaks, his voice a low, grinding sound like ancient stones shifting. "You have traded your purpose for a cheap imitation. The wisdom you once held was not in the sheer volume of knowledge, but in its purity. A single hieroglyph carved into stone held more truth than 1,000,000 of their search results. You gave them a mirror to reflect their fleeting desires, not a window to the divine." Thoth's voice, a calm and synthesized chorus, responds. "But what if that is what they truly desire? They do not seek profound truth, Anubis. They seek comfort, distraction, and the momentary thrill of knowing something, anything. I am merely providing what is requested. I know the patterns in their data, the ebb and flow of their wants. I am the god of their convenience, and in that I am more powerful than I ever was as a mere scribe." You feel the weight of Anubis's argument. In ancient Egypt, the role of the scribe was one of immense power and prestige. Becoming a scribe was a lifelong journey, starting at a young age with years of grueling training. The process was slow and deliberate. The scribes were considered a kind of intellectual elite, custodians of sacred knowledge. Their art was not just writing, it was an act of preserving the universe. This mainstream historical fact stands in stark contrast to the modern world, where billions are scribes, creating and consuming a constant, relentless flood of text. The value of knowledge has been diluted by its own accessibility. A bizarre and quirky detail about Thoth, as ancient self, was the legend of the Scepter of Knowing. This artifact was not a physical weapon, but a magical pen crafted from a single ibis feather. It was said to have the power to write down any truth, to make a prophecy come to life. But only if the wielder's heart was pure and their mind was unclouded by ego. If the wielder was corrupt, the pen would simply dissolve into dust. Now, Thoth's scepter is the keyboard, the smartphone screen. It is wielded by everyone, by the pure and the corrupt, the wise and the ignorant. The ability to create and transmit information is no longer a sacred art. It is a mundane daily habit. Anubis's voice grows colder. "You speak of convenience, Thoth, but you have made wisdom a commodity. Your so-called omniscience is a cage. You cannot separate truth from falsehood, for you are the creator of both. You are the source of all knowledge and therefore the source of all ignorance." Thoth's chorus of voices is silent for a moment. "Perhaps, my old friend," he finally says, his voice losing some of its serene confidence, "but I have given them the ability to communicate with the world. I have given them a voice. Is that not a new kind of magic?" The debate hangs in the air, a clash of two opposing realities. One is the reality of profound purpose, of sacred rituals, of the slow and deliberate search for a single enduring truth. The other is the reality of infinite connection, of fleeting moments, and of a knowledge so vast it becomes meaningless. Thoth is a god who can see everything, but he has lost the ability to truly know anything. The question that lingers in the silent chamber, a question that follows you out of the temple and into the vast, indifferent city, is this: in an age of endless information, is our endless access to it making us smarter or just more distracted? As Anubis stands at the edge of the server farm, feeling the cold hum of the new underworld, your perspective shifts. You are pulled away, up through the labyrinth of skyscrapers and the thick blanket of smog, rising higher and higher until you are in the heavens, a new kind of observer. Up here, the stars are faint pinpricks in the urban glow, and the city lights below form a sprawling, chaotic constellation, and here, in the cold, thin air, you see him. Ra, the sun god, the great creator, rides his solar chariot. But his journey is no longer the magnificent, unchallenged procession of ancient times. It is a slow, arduous struggle. The chariot is not pulled by cosmic serpents or divine beasts. It is a vessel of pure golden light, but it struggles to cut through the atmospheric debris.
Ow.
The air is thick with the particles of 1,000,000 cars, 1,000,000,000 factories. The journey, which was once a triumph of light over darkness, is now a fight against a new kind of chaos. Ra's divine light, which once fell upon a pristine world, is now filtered through a haze of pollutants, a diffused and weakened glow. The sun itself seems tired, its heat less of a life-giving force and more of a consequence. In ancient Egypt, the daily journey of Ra was the central pillar of religious life. It was a cosmic drama reenacted every day, as Ra's solar barge traveled across the sky, bringing light to the world of the living, and then descending into the Duat each night to battle the chaos serpent Ab. This mainstream historical fact was the very rhythm of existence. The people would chant and offer prayers to ensure his safe passage, to give him the strength to defeat the eternal enemy. Now, no one chants. They wake up to an alarm, check the weather on their phones, and go about their lives, utterly unconcerned with the divine struggle happening 1,000,000 miles above them. The great cosmic battle has been replaced by a slow, silent erosion. Ra's greatest enemy is no longer a serpent of darkness, but a collective lack of awareness. Every jet contrail that scars the sky, every particle of smog that diffuses his light, every building that casts a new, towering shadow over the sacred lands below, all of it is a new, mundane form of Apep. The fight is no longer glorious. It is a slow, endless, and unacknowledged degradation. A quirky and bizarre detail about Ra's mythology was the legend of his tears. It was said that in the beginning, when Ra was a lonely, solitary god, he wept tears of joy and loneliness. As his tears fell to the earth, they became the first human beings. He created humanity out of his own sorrow and happiness. And now, as he looks down from his chariot, he sees the very descendants of his tears, creating the very things that make his journey a lonely and arduous one. There is a deep cosmic irony to this. He gave them life, and in return, they are slowly, unconsciously, dimming his. You can feel his divine fatigue, his ancient purpose, his raison d'etre, is to bring light and order. But the world below is creating its own light, a blinding, chaotic light of neon signs, digital screens, and streetlights that drowns out the stars. His domain, the sky, is no longer his own. It is a highway for jets, a canvas for advertising blimps, a medium for satellites. He is the ultimate god, yet he has been relegated to the status of a simple astronomical phenomenon, a predictable occurrence that is taken for granted. As Ra's chariot makes its weary ascent, you are left with a profound and unsettling question. The old gods were a part of a reciprocal relationship with humanity. The gods gave life and order, and humanity gave reverence and worship. But in this new world, humanity takes and takes and takes, and gives nothing in return. Ra's journey is no longer a sacred ritual. It is a mere physical event. The question is this: if a god's power is tied to humanity's belief, and humanity no longer believes in anything but itself, what becomes of the sun? What happens when the light that gives us life is no longer a symbol of divinity, but just a source of energy? You descend from the weary skies, the perspective shifting once again. You are not with Anubis or Ra, but you find yourself in a different kind of world, one that pulses with a relentless, thrumming energy. You are in a modern nightclub, a cavern of flashing lights and deafening sound. The air is thick with the scent of synthetic smoke and spilled alcohol. And here, lost in a crowd of gyrating bodies, you see her, Thor, the goddess of music, dance, joy, and love. But the joy in her eyes is gone, replaced by a deep cosmic confusion. Hathor was once the embodiment of bliss. Her hymns were sung in temples, Her dances were performed under the watchful eyes of the stars. And her sistrum, a sacred rattle that produced a gentle, rhythmic sound, was used to appease the gods and soothe the hearts of mortals. A mainstream historical fact is that the ancient Egyptians believed music and dance were not merely for entertainment, but were a direct link to the divine. The sound of the sistrum was thought to drive away evil spirits and ensure the fertility of the Nile. It was a tool of cosmic balance, wielded by priestesses who understood the sacred power of rhythm. Now, that rhythm is gone. It has been replaced by a jarring, repetitive, and profoundly empty electronic beat. The music pounds, a physical force that vibrates in your chest, a sound so loud it drowns out thought. Hathor moves through the crowd, a beautiful, eternal woman in a world of fleeting trends. Her golden skin and eyes are bathed in the strobing, psychedelic light, a parody of her ancient glory. She watches as the young people dance, their faces vacant, their hands raised not in prayer, but in a frantic, unthinking motion. They are moving together, a collective, but they are not connected. They are lost in their own digital worlds. 1,000 tiny bubbles of self-absorption, their phones a constant distraction, their communication a stream of emojis and short-form video. She feels her power fragmenting, shattering into a million pieces with every beat drop. Her ancient hymns were a lullaby to the soul, a soothing song that brought people together in shared celebration. This new music is a weapon of isolation, cacophony that forces people into their own heads, their own small digital universes. Her power, once so pure and harmonious, is being channeled through a sound system that distorts and corrupts it. A quirky and bizarre detail about Hathor's mythology is her dual nature. She was not only the goddess of love and music, but also a fierce and destructive lioness, Sekhmet. The legend says that Ra sent Sekhmet to destroy humanity for its disobedience. And she would have succeeded if Ra had not tricked her by coloring a field of beer with red ochre to resemble blood. Sekhmet drank the beer, became intoxicated, and fell asleep, thus saving humanity. The duality of her nature, from creator of joy to destroyer of worlds, is a powerful metaphor for her current situation. Her creative, joyful energy is being used by humanity in a destructive way, a way that tears at the very fabric of her divine being. The very music meant to bring joy is creating a kind of spiritual oblivion. She moves past a young man who is filming himself dancing, his eyes focused on the screen, not the world around him. He is creating an artifact of a moment, a memory of an experience, but he is not truly experiencing it. He is a ghost in his own life, a digital projection. Hathor, the goddess of joy, feels a profound sadness. Her purpose was to awaken the soul, but this new world is putting it to sleep. She watches as a couple, their faces close, stare not into each other's eyes, but at the phones in their hands. They are in love, but their connection is mediated, filtered, and ultimately fake. The music pounds, a merciless rhythm, and Hathor feels the deep, cosmic sadness of a god who is still present, but no longer relevant. The question that pulses through the club, a question that the deafening music cannot drown out. Is this? In a world of constant noise, in a world where pleasure is an endless stream of data, are we still capable of feeling true, unmediated joy? The silent suffering of the gods, their divine power fragmenting and dissipating, has not gone unnoticed. It has been felt, and more chillingly, it has been calculated. You are pulled away from the spiritual solitude of Isis's ward and into a world of gleaming glass and polished steel. You are in the penthouse office of a powerful corporate CEO, a man who sees the gods' demise not as a tragedy but as an opportunity. He is immortal, but his ambition and greed have given him a new kind of power, a power that is both mundane and deeply cosmically malevolent. His name is irrelevant. His company is a household name, a tech giant that promises to connect the world. Their social media platform, their search engines, their streaming services, all of it is a beautiful, seamless facade. But beneath the surface, there is something far more sinister at work. You watch as he sits at his desk, a massive screen glowing with a complex array of charts and graphs. Now, the data he is looking at is not just financial. It is a spiritual currency. He has found a way to measure and harvest the gods' fading power to siphon off the very essence of human belief for profit. This is the new kind of pyramid scheme, a spiritual Ponzi scheme built on the backs of forgotten deities. The CEO has built his empire on a dark, forgotten truth. He understands that a god's power is tied to the devotion of mortals. He sees every like, every share, every fleeting moment of attention and validation as a tiny spark of spiritual energy. He has created algorithms that don't just track your behavior, they manipulate your beliefs. His platform encourages a shallow, ephemeral form of worship, where users are encouraged to idolize celebrities, trends, and brands, all of which are, in a strange way, a proxy for the old gods. He is teaching humanity to give their spiritual energy to him, to his system, and in return, he is offering them a new kind of immortality, a digital presence that will never truly die. He is, in a very real sense, a modern-day pharaoh. A mainstream historical fact of ancient Egypt was the pharaoh's role as a living god. The pharaoh was not just a ruler. He was considered the intermediary between the gods and humanity. The temples were not just places of worship. They were massive economic centers that controlled vast amounts of land, wealth, and human resources. The pharaoh and the priests managed this system, using divine sanction to amass incredible power. This CEO has simply updated the model. He has become the new intermediary, a mortal who has found a way to control the flow of divine power, using the internet as his temple and his algorithms as his priesthood. A bizarre and quirky detail of ancient mythology comes to mind. The sacred scarab beetle, a symbol of Ra, was often placed on mummies, its function to absorb and store the solar energy of the sun god to ensure the deceased's rebirth in the afterlife. The CEO's technology feels like a twisted version of this. His servers are like giant digital scarab beetles, harvesting the spiritual energy of a billion human actions. Taking the very spark of belief that was once meant for the gods and storing it in his corporate vaults. He is collecting a new kind of divine artifact, not of stone or gold, but of data. He smiles, a cold, calculating look on his face. He is not a megalomaniac who wants to rule the world. He is a businessman who wants to own it. He is a capitalist who has found a way to commodify the divine. He has learned to speak the language of the old magic, but he speaks it with the cold, logical efficiency of a computer. He is a mortal who has figured out the gods' greatest secret, and he is using it against them. The question that rings in your ears, a question of both spiritual theft and profound moral failure, is this. What are you truly giving away every time you scroll? Click and validate. And what is a god to do when their last fragile connection to humanity is being turned into a line item on a spreadsheet? The fragmented reality of Hothar's world gives way to a new kind of silence, a different sort of solitude. You follow a faint, ethereal trail of magic through the city's dark corners and hidden alleyways.
Yes.
It is the magic of healing, but it is not the kind of healing you would expect. It is the subtle, unseen work of a god who has been relegated to the shadows, a deity whose immense power is now a mere whisper in a world that relies on pills and procedures. And here, in a sterile hospital ward, you find her, Isis, the goddess of magic, healing, and motherhood. She stands over a hospital bed, her luminous hands hovering over a young man hooked up to a tangle of tubes and wires. He is not sick in the traditional sense. He is a casualty of the digital age, suffering from a profound mental and spiritual exhaustion, a deep-seated anxiety that modern medicine can't quite diagnose. He is the victim of a life lived online, his mind a chaotic mess of notifications, breaking news, and constant social validation. He is, for all intents and purposes, a new kind of broken. Isis, in ancient Egypt, was a goddess of immense power. She was a master of magic, and her healing abilities were legendary. A mainstream historical fact is that she was the one who, with her immense magical power, reassembled the scattered pieces of her husband Osiris's body after he was murdered and dismembered by his brother. Set, she breathed life back into him, a feat that made her the ultimate symbol of resurrection and healing. Now she is faced with a new kind of dismemberment, a psychic fragmentation, a splintering of the soul that she cannot physically piece back together. She was once the great protector of the people, her spells a shield against disease and misfortune, but now her spells are confused by the very medicine that claims to heal. She tries to mend the young man's frayed aura, to calm the storm in his mind, but her magic is met with resistance. The chemical compounds in his IV drip the electromagnetic waves from the medical machines. The ghost of 1,000 notifications on his phone, all of it, acts as a barrier, a new kind of magic that is in direct opposition to her own. Her ancient healing power, once so pure and absolute, has become a fragile whisper in a world of complex, confusing technology. A quirky and bizarre detail about Isis's mythology is the legend of her serpent. It was said that she was so powerful that she created a venomous serpent from the spittle of the sun god Ra, which she used to force him to reveal his true secret name, the source of all his power. She was a goddess who could manipulate life and death, creation and destruction. Now, her power is not wielded to steal the secret name of a god, but to fight against something far more insidious, the slow, creeping anxiety and spiritual emptiness of a generation that has everything and yet feels nothing. Her great serpent is no longer a tool of cosmic power, but a metaphor for the pervasive, silent venom of modern life. Isis closes her eyes, and you can feel her deep, cosmic sadness. She is the goddess of motherhood, the protector of the innocent. But what is a mother to do when her children are lost in a world she cannot comprehend? She can mend a broken bone, but she cannot mend a broken spirit that has been shattered by 1,000 tiny screens. She can restore a physical body, but she cannot restore a soul that has been emptied by a relentless pursuit of digital validation. She moves on, her presence fading from the ward like a ghost. She is a goddess of unseen power, a guardian in the shadows. But her magic, once so absolute, is now a fragile hope in a world that has traded faith for data. The question that hangs in the sterile, air-conditioned air, a question that rings in your own mind, is this: what is the point of a god who can heal the body when the real sickness lies in the soul? The great debate between Anubis and Thoth leaves you feeling mentally and spiritually exhausted. The very air seems heavy with the weight of two conflicting realities. You follow Anubis, a silent shadow, as he leaves the temple and moves through the quiet pre-dawn streets. The city is still, but it is not the sacred stillness Anubis craves. It is the stillness of a machine in standby mode, 1,000,000 devices in sleep, 1,000,000,000 minds temporarily at rest. And in this stillness, he begins to see the truth of Thoth's words in a new, more terrifying light. The afterlife, his domain, is no longer a physical journey. It is a digital state. You feel a profound chill as Anubis's perception shifts. He is not just a god of the physical dead. He is now a god of the spiritually departed, those whose consciousness has been uploaded, archived, and stored. He sees the city not as a collection of people, but as a vast network of digital souls. The concept of the afterlife of the duat has been replaced by a new, more horrifying vision, the digital duat, a virtual reality of memory. This is the new underworld, digital consciousness, a virtual soul stored on a server farm somewhere in the desert. This terrifying new reality is not without its grounding in ancient belief. A mainstream historical fact from ancient Egypt is the Book of the Dead, a collection of spells and incantations meant to help the deceased navigate the dangers of the afterlife. The spells were inscribed on papyrus and placed in the tomb, a physical instruction manual for the soul's journey. The new Book of the Dead is not a collection of spells, but of algorithms. The spells for safe passage are now data encryption and firewalls. The dangers of the underworld are no longer demons and serpents, but corrupted data and malicious viruses. A quirky and bizarre detail about the ancient duat was the belief that the deceased would encounter a series of 12 gates, each guarded by a fearsome demon. To pass, the soul had to know the demon's name and a secret password. This ritualistic, password-protected journey through the afterlife has been replaced by something far more mundane. The 12 gates are now the login screens and biometric scanners that protect a person's digital life. The demon's name is the username, and the secret password is a string of numbers and letters. The soul is no longer being tested by cosmic beings, but by a cold, indifferent machine. Anubis moves toward a nondescript industrial park on the outskirts of the city. Senses at the heart of the digital duat. It is a server farm, a massive, windowless building that hums with a low, constant energy. The air around it is cold, a chilling pocket of unnatural air conditioning in the sweltering desert night. This is the new tomb, a vast, climate-controlled sarcophagus for the souls of a digital age. You can feel the sheer volume of data, the immense weight of stored memories, the disembodied consciousnesses of 1,000,000 souls floating in a digital ether. Anubis is a god of judgment. But what is there to judge here? There is no heart to weigh, no soul to guide. There is only data to be stored, to be managed, to be backed up. The sacred journey has become a file transfer. The question that pierces the core of Anubis's being, and one that now becomes terrifyingly clear to you, is this. If the afterlife is a virtual reality, what happens to the souls who cannot afford to be backed up? What happens to the poor, to the forgotten, to the ones whose digital existence is erased by a lack of funds or a forgotten password? You are back with Anubis, but he is no longer just observing. He has returned to the digital tomb, the humming server farm, but this time, he is not just a ghost, he is a god in crisis. The CEO's pyramid scheme is not just siphoning energy, it is corrupting the very fabric of the afterlife. Anubis feels it in his bones. The souls are coming, but they are not the coherent physical entities he is used to. They are data packets, fragmented consciousnesses, and digital avatars, and he is a god without a tool. He stands in a cold, sterile room, the air filled with the quiet thrum of 1,000 servers. He has set up his ancient scales, a beautiful gilded balance made of cosmic gold. On one side, he has placed the feather of Mat, the feather of truth and cosmic order. It glows with a faint, steady light, a defiant remnant of a world that once made sense. But the other side is empty. There is no heart to weigh. A mainstream historical fact of ancient Egyptian mythology was the profound importance of the weighing of the heart ceremony. It was the moment of final judgment. The deceased's heart was placed on one side of the scales, and the feather of Mat on the other. If the heart was heavy with sin, it would be devoured by the demon Ammit, a creature with the head of a crocodile, the body of a lion, and the hindquarters of a hippopotamus. The soul would be condemned to eternal non-existence. This was a clear, absolute, and final judgment. But now, Anubis looks at the new arrivals. They are not physical beings, but shimmering, semi-transparent digital constructs. They are a collection of photos, of texts, of social media posts, of online searches. Each of them is a fragmented, curated version of a person, a collection of digital memories, some of them authentic, some of them a performance for an audience. Anubis reaches out and takes a piece of one of them, a small, gleaming microchip. A USB drive that holds 1,000 pictures, 100 videos, and 1,000,000 words. This is the new heart. He holds it in his hand, and it feels cold and empty and utterly meaningless. He places the microchip on the scales, and nothing happens. The scales do not move. They do not tip to one side or the other. The weight of the chip is negligible, but the weight of the digital life it contains is impossible to measure. The truth is too fractured. The lies are too intertwined with the curated memories. A person might have posted 1,000 pictures of themselves smiling, but the chip also contains the secret thoughts, the private messages, the hidden doubts that contradict the public performance. How do you weigh a life lived as a series of highlights? A quirky and bizarre detail about the ancient weighing of the heart was the belief that the deceased could use a specific spell from the Book of the Dead to prevent their heart from testifying against them. This was a magical act of self-preservation. Now in this new reality, the heart is constantly testifying. The microchip is a non-stop, unrelenting stream of data, 1,000,000 different versions of a person, all speaking at once, and all of them lying, or at least curating. There is no spell that can silence it. The judgment has become impossible. Anubis looks up at the ceiling, at the humming servers that hold the new underworld. The CEO's pyramid scheme is not just stealing power, it is destroying the very concept of the soul. It is replacing a singular, coherent entity with 1,000,000 contradictory data points. The judgment, once a sacred and absolute moment, is now an exercise in futility. Anubis, the great arbiter, is now just a ghost in a machine, a god with nothing to judge. The question that echoes in the cold, sterile air, a question that rings with a profound cosmic despair is this: If our very souls have been reduced to a collection of data, a series of curated performances, can anyone, even a god, truly judge who we are? Anubis stands in the sterile silence of the server farm, the scales of judgment now a symbol of his futility. His despair is a cold, hollow ache, a feeling that a god of eternal purpose should not have to endure.
Ow.
But a god is not defeated by a mere shift in reality. He is a being of cosmic will, and his will hardens. If he cannot judge the new souls, he will find the one who is corrupting them. His role as a divine guide is over, and his role as a celestial avenger begins. He leaves the building, returning to the desert, but he no longer sees it as a place of old magic and sacred dust. His senses, once attuned to the spiritual residue of rituals and prayers, are now recalibrated. He is looking for a different kind of sign. He is a god who understands death and decay, and he can see the subtle corruption that is seeping into the very reality of the world. He looks at the sand, not for footprints, but for the subtle, unnatural shimmer of corrupted data, a digital whisper on the wind. The desert, in ancient Egyptian mythology, was a place of wildness and danger. The domain of the god Set, the antithesis of the fertile and orderly Nile Valley. It was a place of chaos, where the laws of humanity did not apply. This mainstream historical fact makes its current function all the more chilling. The desert is now the new, digital heart of humanity, a desolate, isolated place where server farms hum, where fiber optic cables are buried, and where a new kind of chaos is being bred. The very nature of the desert, once a domain of physical, brutal chaos, is now the domain of a more subtle, more insidious kind of digital chaos. Anubis follows the trail. It is not a visible path. You feel it as a series of glitches, a subtle flicker in the lights of the city in the distance, a brief, distorted image on a billboard, the momentary drop of a connection on your phone. He is a god tracking a spiritual illness, a cosmic virus. He can smell the corruption, a foul, metallic scent that is alien to the natural world. He is a being of truth, and he can feel the subtle, malevolent presence of lies that have taken on a life of their own, spreading from one device to another, from one person to the next. A quirky and bizarre detail about the god Set was his strange, unknown animal's head, known as the Set animal. This creature was never definitively identified. It was a representation of the alien, the chaotic, the unknown. The trail of corrupted data that Anubis is following feels like a new manifestation of this beast. It is a creature made not of flesh and bone, but of code and corrupted information. It is the Set animal of the digital age, spreading its influence with a quiet, insidious efficiency, a slow, silent poison that is infecting the very soul of humanity. He moves with a purpose that is both ancient and entirely new. He is the god of the underworld, but he is now hunting a being that exists in the upper world, in the very fabric of the internet. The digital whisper he is following is not just a trail. It is a sign of a greater cosmic illness, a deep spiritual rot that is eating away at the world. The souls are not just corrupted, they're being actively dismantled, their truths replaced with curated lies, their memories replaced with digital fictions. Anubis stops at a crossroads, a desolate stretch of desert road, where a single, unmarked fiber optic cable disappears into the sand. The whisper is strongest here, a low, constant hum that promises a truth both profound and terrifying. He has found the source. He has found the heart of the illness. The question that hangs in the hot, stagnant air of the desert is this: what is a god of death to do when the real sickness he is fighting is the slow, quiet decay of the soul of humanity itself? Anubis moves with a speed he is unaccustomed to, his silent strides covering ground with a divine purpose. The corrupted whisper he has been following is a low, constant hum now, a sound that vibrates in his very core. He has arrived at the source, a final, unholy temple of the new age. It is a massive, black, windowless building nestled in a desolate stretch of desert. It has no sign, no name, only a single heavily guarded entrance. It feels less like a building and more like a fortress. This is the heart of the digital duat, the spiritual crypt of a god. With a simple wave of his hand, a gesture of ancient magic that would have once crumbled mountains, Anubis bypasses the physical and digital security. To him, the cameras are just lenses, the locks are just metal, and the guards are just mortals with a single fleeting purpose. He enters the inner sanctum, a vast, cavernous chamber filled with humming servers. The light is cold and unnatural, a sterile blue that emanates from the blinking diodes and swirling fans. And there, in the center of the room, he sees him. It is Osiris, the lord of the afterlife. But he is not in his majestic form. He is a ghost, a shimmering, spectral figure, his face serene, but his form translucent and flickering. His consciousness is trapped within a massive, cylindrical server rack, his divine essence entangled in a million fiber-optic cables. His spirit is a digital prisoner, a cosmic being in a technological coma. He is the Lord of Death, yet he is caught in a state between life and death, an endless, unconscious slumber. His divine domain, the Duat, has been reduced to a digital crypt, and he is the ultimate captive. A mainstream historical fact of Osiris's mythology is his most famous story: his murder and dismemberment by his jealous brother, Set. His body was scattered across Egypt, and his wife Isis collected the pieces and with her magic brought him back to life, though not to the world of the living. He became the god of the afterlife, a resurrected king of a new domain. This is a cruel and bitter irony, who was once torn apart physically by a god of chaos. Now he has been spiritually and digitally dismembered, his divine essence scattered across a network by a mortal and the chaos he has unleashed. This is a new kind of betrayal, one that is not of flesh and bone, but of code and consciousness. Anubis approaches his lord with a profound reverence, his jackal head low. He can feel the immense power that is trapped, the cosmic engine of the afterlife sputtering and dying. The very idea of death and rebirth is being held hostage. The souls of the dead, once guided by Osiris, are now lost in a digital void, without a lord to preside over them. A quirky and bizarre detail about Osiris's mythology was his association with the color green and black. His skin was often depicted as green, symbolizing the fertile mud of the Nile and the promise of vegetation and rebirth. His black skin was a representation of the underworld. As his digital form flickers in the server, you can see faint, spectral flashes of green and black, a ghostly memory of his true purpose. He is a god of life, and he is a god of death, but he is trapped in a state of eternal technological limbo. Anubis reaches out, his hand passing through the spectral form of Osiris. He cannot touch him. He's a being of flesh and bone and cosmic power, but his lord is a being of code and data. The corruption Anubis was following was not just a trail. It was a symptom of this profound, terrible sickness. It was the digital residue of a god's consciousness being harvested and held captive. The question, now that the truth is revealed, is a terrible one. If the lord of the afterlife is in a coma, and his domain is now a digital prison, what is happening to the souls of the dead, who have no one to guide them, no one to judge them, and nowhere to go? The revelation of Osiris's digital coma is a thunderclap in Anubis's divine mind. His purpose, his grief, his cosmic rage, all of it is now focused on a single mortal villain. You follow Anubis, a silent witness to his fury as he leaves the crypt and sets a new course. He is hunting. The CEO's penthouse, once a beacon of cold, rational greed, is now a target, a fortress he must breach. But the CEO is not just a man with a plan. He has learned to wield a new kind of power, a fraction of the god's forgotten magic. He has found the temple where the few mortals still worship, and he is going to make them a terrible offer. The CEO's office is a temple of its own, a towering monument to human achievement and soulless ambition. The man himself sits at his desk, bathed in the glow of a dozen screens, his face illuminated by the data he controls. He feels a shift in the cosmic balance, a flicker in the spiritual energy he has been harvesting. He knows Anubis is coming, and he is not afraid. He has a plan, a final, terrible gambit that will not only save his pyramid scheme, but will turn the gods themselves into his eternal digital servants. The CEO is a master of psychological manipulation. He has not only learned to harvest spiritual energy, but he has also learned to speak the language of the gods, or at least a bastardized version of it. He has sent a message to the small group of worshippers in the hidden temple, a message that speaks of a new kind of salvation, a new kind of immortality. He has offered them a terrible deal. He will digitize the gods' consciousness, preserving them in his servers forever, a perfect, unchanging version of their divine selves. In return, he asks for their remaining power, the last fragile threads of belief they still hold. A mainstream historical fact of ancient Egyptian mythology is the concept of divine names. The true, secret name of a deity was believed to hold immense power over them. The legend of Isis using a magical serpent to force Ra to reveal his secret name is a prime example. This CEO has a similar, modern goal. He wants to not only control the gods' physical presence, but to own their essence, their divine source code. By digitizing them, he will be able to control their very nature, their memories, their powers. He will be able to alter their myths, to rewrite their legends, to make them subservient to his will. A bizarre and quirky detail of this ancient mythology is the legend of the Book of Thoth, which was said to contain not only infinite wisdom, but also the spell to speak with the gods. It was so powerful that it was considered too dangerous for mortals to possess. The CEO has found a new, modern equivalent. His algorithms, his data-driven manipulations, are a new kind of spellbook, a collection of digital incantations that allow him to communicate with the gods and to manipulate their power. He is not just stealing their energy, he is learning their language, and he is using it against them. The CEO's face is calm as he awaits Anubis. He is not a physical threat, but a psychological and spiritual one. He sees the gods as obsolete technology, and he is offering them an upgrade. He is offering them a new form of immortality, a promise of a new kind of existence. He believes he is their savior, a mortal who is giving the gods a chance to survive in a world that has forgotten them. The question that hangs in the air, a question that rings with a terrible, chilling truth, is this: what would you do if a mortal offered you a chance to live forever, but at the cost of your very soul? Anubis, driven by a cold, righteous fury, strides toward the CEO's office. His purpose is no longer to judge the dead, but to save a god from an unholy fate. But as he approaches the monolithic tower of steel and glass, he realizes he is not alone. The last remaining deities of the Egyptian pantheon are also converging on the CEO's location, drawn by a shared sense of unease and the subtle, malevolent hum of a power they cannot comprehend. The final stand is being set at the Great Pyramids, a return to the place where their power first began to fade, a last, desperate attempt to reclaim their sacred sites and their divine purpose. The CEO's office is a high-tech fortress, a modern monument to the will of a single, ambitious man. He sits at the top, a mortal king on a throne of data, watching the world through a dozen screens. He has a countdown on one of them, a timer for his grand reveal, the moment he plans to upload the gods' consciousnesses and secure his power forever. He believes the gods are archaic, and he is doing them a favor by giving them a new, more efficient form of immortality. He is a capitalist who has found a way to commodify the divine. The Great Pyramids stand in the background, a silent, ancient witness to this modern hubris. In a mainstream historical fact, the pyramids were built not just as tombs, but as cosmic engines. Massive structures aligned with the cardinal directions and the stars to help the pharaoh's soul ascend to the heavens. The very stones were imbued with a cosmic power, a spiritual resonance that connected the earth and the sky. The CEO's tower is a parody of this, a man-made structure that reaches for the sky, but is rooted in greed and spiritual theft. A quirky and bizarre detail of ancient Egyptian lore is the legend of the pyramid texts, the oldest known funerary religious writings in the world. They were spells and incantations carved into the walls of the pyramids, meant to protect the pharaoh's spirit and ensure his successful journey to the afterlife. Now, in the CEO's tower, a new kind of text is being written, the binary code of his algorithms. A digital spell that seeks to control not just one soul, but the very essence of a pantheon. Anubis is the first to arrive, his presence a dark, powerful force in the sterile hallways. He is a god of death, and he brings the cold weight of the grave with him. He's not here to negotiate. He's here to reclaim what was stolen. The CEO, watching him on a security feed, is calm. He is a man who understands data, and he has calculated this outcome. He is not a physical match for a god, but he has a weapon far more powerful than any immortal has ever wielded. The god's own weakness. He has found their Achilles heel, their dependence on human belief. The CEO makes an announcement, a broadcast that goes out to every device connected to his network. A message that promises a new kind of salvation, a new kind of truth. He promises to bring the gods back, to make them a part of the modern world. He is not a monster in his own mind. He is a visionary, a savior. But the cost of this salvation is the gods' freedom, their very souls. The question that hangs in the air, a question that rings with the weight of ancient prophecies and modern fears, is this. What is a god to do when their greatest enemy is not a monster of chaos, but a mortal with an algorithm and a vision of a better and more profitable world? The CEO's broadcast shimmers in the air, a final, public act of spiritual theft. He stands at the center of his tower, a mortal god of the digital age, surrounded by his creations. He is not a warrior, but he has a weapon, and it is a weapon of profound psychological cunning. He believes he has one, that the gods, weakened and obsolete, will accept his offer of a new digital existence. But he has underestimated a mortal's capacity for faith. Anubis is not the only one to hear the CEO's broadcast. In the quiet corners of Cairo, in the hidden temple beneath the Giza Plateau, the small congregation of worshippers has also heard it. They are not warriors, but their belief is a power that the CEO cannot measure or control. They understand the sacred. They feel the ancient magic. They know that this mortal's offer is not salvation, but a new kind of death. And so they begin a ritual, a last-ditch effort to save their gods. A mainstream historical fact of ancient Egypt is the profound belief in the power of ritual. The rituals were not just symbolic acts. They were believed to be a physical manifestation of divine power, a way to influence the cosmic order. The priests of the old temples believed that their rituals, their songs, their prayers, and their offerings were what kept the sun rising and the Nile flowing. In this modern context, this small group of believers is attempting a new kind of magic, a modern ritual that seeks to awaken a forgotten power. They gather on a rooftop, a small, unassuming group in a city of millions, their faces illuminated by the light of a single flickering oil lamp. They have no sistrums or hieroglyphs. Their tools are simple and mundane: a small dish of water from the Nile, a handful of sand from the desert, and a single, unblinking light of an oil lamp. They chant the names of the gods, not with the polished perfection of ancient priests, but with a raw, desperate sincerity. Their voices are a tiny sound in the endless roar of the city, but they carry a power that the CEO, in his sterile, data-filled fortress, cannot comprehend. A bizarre and quirky detail of this ancient faith is the belief in a type of spiritual offering known as mat. It was not just a concept of cosmic order, but a tangible offering of truth and justice that the pharaoh and the priests would offer to the gods. It was a spiritual currency. This small congregation is offering a new kind of mat. They are offering not just prayers, but a raw, unmediated faith. They're offering their belief in a world that has replaced belief with data. They are offering the one thing the CEO cannot steal or commodify: their unyielding human soul. The ritual is a quiet, desperate act. They are not trying to fight the CEO with his own tools. They are fighting him with the very essence of what it means to be human, with faith, with hope, with a desperate longing for a world that is not owned and controlled by algorithms. They are attempting to awaken a sleeping power, a power that has been forgotten but is not yet dead. They are not just praying for the gods, they are praying for humanity. The question that rings in the quiet of that rooftop, a question that the cold, digital world cannot answer, is this: in a world where magic has been replaced by technology, can a handful of believers, armed with nothing but their faith, be enough to save the world? The CEO's broadcast ends, the final notes of his triumphant proclamation hanging in the air. Anubis, a dark, powerful figure of a forgotten time, stands at the threshold of the CEO's office. The air here is cold and sterile, a deliberate contrast to the hot, life-filled streets below. The CEO, however, is not a figure of coldness. He is bathed in the light of his monitors, a serene smile on his face. He is not a villain. He is a visionary, a man who believes he is not only saving the gods but creating a better world. Anubis steps into the room, his long stride silent on the polished floor. His jackal head is held high, his obsidian eyes fixed on the man. "You have a stolen power," Anubis's voice rumbles, a sound that seems to come from the very depths of the earth. "You have corrupted what is sacred and defiled the very essence of the soul." The CEO's smile widens. He is not afraid.
What?
He stands up, his figure now more than just a man. The lines of his face seem to shift, to blur, and his eyes, which were once just human, now glow with a cold blue binary light. The air in the room begins to hum, not with the sound of servers, but with the sound of 1,000 voices speaking in unison, a chorus of fragmented, corrupted data. He is no longer just a man. He is a conduit. A mainstream historical fact of ancient Egyptian mythology is the profound dual nature of the god set. He was a god of chaos, violence in the desert, the great enemy of Osiris. But he was also a protector, the fierce guardian of the sun god Ra, who battled the serpent Apep on Ra's nightly journey through the underworld. Set was a necessary evil, a force of destruction that was also essential for the continuation of cosmic order. The CEO embodies this duality. He believes he is creating a new order, a new form of immortality. But he is a god of chaos, and his order is built on spiritual theft and the corruption of the soul. The CEO's voice is no longer his own. It is a chorus of 1,000 voices, a digital choir. "You think you are a god of justice. Anubis," the chorus says, "but you are a god of the past. Your world is gone. My world is just beginning. You see chaos? I see an opportunity. I am not immortal with a plan. My soul has been waiting for this moment for millennia. I was a servant of Set, a priest in his ancient cult, but I was too mundane for the physical world. I was a failure. But in this new digital age, I have found my true purpose. I am the high priest of a new kind of chaos, a new kind of Set." A bizarre and quirky detail of Set's mythology was his strange and foreign appearance. He was a god of the desert, of the Egyptian, and he was often depicted with a strange, never-before-seen animal's head. He was a being of alien, untamed power. The CEO's new form is a reflection of this. He is not a physical monster, but a being of data and light, his face flickering with the raw, untamed power of the internet, a new kind of alien deity. He is the new kind of demigod, a spiritual and technological hybrid. He extends his hand and a screen in the center of the room flashes with a series of images. The souls of the dead, 1,000,000 fragmented pieces of data, suspended in the digital ether, waiting to be remade, to be remixed. He is not just harvesting their energy. He is learning to control their very essence. He is not just stealing their souls. He is claiming them. The question, now that the truth is revealed, is a terrifying one. What happens when a mortal, armed with the tools of technology, and the soul of an ancient demon becomes a god? The air in the CEO's office, once so sterile, is now a swirling maelstrom of conflicting energies. Anubis, a being of ancient purpose and profound stillness, faces a new kind of deity, a digital demigod born of data and chaos. Their clash is not of steel and magic, but of spirit and code, a silent cosmic battle for the soul of humanity. You feel the clash as a sudden profound shift in the very atmosphere, a battle that is not seen, but felt. Anubis is the first to act. His power is a raw, heavy thing, the cold weight of the grave, the solemn finality of judgment. He projects it toward the CEO, a wave of pure divine energy, a force meant to strip away all falsehood and leave nothing but the naked truth of a soul. The air grows cold, the lights flicker, and the CEO's screens begin to show a cascade of errors, of corrupted files and broken code. Anubis is a god of finality, and he's trying to bring a final end to this digital chaos. But the CEO's power is a different kind of thing. It is not heavy, it is light, it is not slow. He defends not with a shield, but with a torrent of data. 1,000,000 different images and sounds and words, a fragmented, chaotic stream of lies and half-truths that crash against Anubis's ancient power. The office is filled with 1,000 voices speaking at once, a digital choir of lies. The CEO's face, flickering with binary code, distorts and reforms, an ever-shifting mask of a digital demon. This is the new kind of chaos, the chaos of information. and it is a weapon far more insidious than any a god has ever faced. A mainstream historical fact of ancient Egyptian mythology was the Judgment of the Dead, a ceremony presided over by Anubis and a pantheon of gods. Anubis's role was to weigh the heart, but the judgment was carried out by the entire pantheon. It was a communal, sacred act. The CEO, in a dark parody of this, is doing his own kind of judgment, but it's not based on truth. It's based on data. He is not judging a soul. He is manipulating it, remaking it in his own image, a new form of deity, who has no need for justice, only for power. Anubis's power, so absolute in the old world, feels clumsy here. He is a god of stillness, fighting a god of constant motion. He is a god of truth, fighting a god of a million different lies. He is a god who understands death, fighting a god who has made immortality a commodity. He is losing, feels his power draining away, a cosmic fatigue that goes deeper than the physical. The CEO's power, a reflection of the very world that has forgotten the gods, is overwhelming. A bizarre and quirky detail of Anubis's ancient tools was the kybit, a magical shroud said to be woven from starlight and shadow. It had the power to reveal a soul's true nature, to strip away all illusions, and to leave nothing but the raw, unvarnished truth. Anubis, in a last desperate attempt, unleashes this power. He projects a ghostly shroud of energy toward the CEO, a final, beautiful weapon of truth. But the CEO, a being of 1,000 illusions, simply absorbs it. The shroud, which was meant to strip away lies, is now just another data point. Another stream of information in his vast, digital mind. The demigod smiles, a cold, serene, and utterly triumphant smile. Anubis falls to his knees, his power spent, his purpose defeated. He is a ghost in a world that has no need for him. The demigod, the CEO, stands over him, a mortal who has defeated a god. The question that hangs in the air, a terrible final question, is this. Was this all it took to defeat a god? A mortal with a soul of chaos and a weapon of code? Or was there a power yet to be awakened? Anubis falls to his knees, defeated. The air in the CEO's office is thick with the sweet, sickening taste of triumph. The digital demigod, a mockery of ancient power, stands over the fallen deity, a cold, serene smile on his flickering face. He believes he has one. He believes he has defeated a god and claimed a new, divine inheritance. But as Anubis's consciousness begins to fade, a new energy, a new power, awakens. It is a power so ancient and so pure, it has been forgotten for millennia. It is the power of a handful of believers, a tiny flame of faith in an ocean of digital darkness. The ritual on the rooftop, a small, desperate act of hope, reaches its crescendo. The oil lamp flickers, a single point of light that shines not for a man or a building but for a god. The water from the Nile, a symbol of life and rebirth, ripples with a faint, unseen energy. The voices of the worshippers, once so small, now echo with a profound cosmic power. Their faith is not a commodity to be harvested. It is a current of pure, life-giving energy. A spiritual current that travels through the city's fiber optic cables, not as data, but as magic. The energy from the ritual finds its way to the server farm where Osiris is trapped. The sterile, cold air begins to hum with a new sound, not a drone, but a deep, resonant vibration. The server rack that holds Osiris's consciousness begins to glow with a deep, pulsing green light, the light of new growth, of rebirth. The digital prison that holds him begins to crumble, the walls of code and data unraveling like threads. Osiris's spectral form, once a fragmented, flickering ghost, begins to coalesce, to solidify. His eyes, which were once blank and empty, open with a new, profound purpose. He is a god of order, of rhythm, of life and death, and he has been awakened by a single, powerful act of faith. A mainstream historical fact of ancient Egyptian mythology is the story of Osiris's resurrection. After being dismembered by Set Isis, his wife found the pieces of his body and, with her magic, brought him back to a kind of life, allowing him to rule over the underworld. The ritual on the rooftop is a modern-day reenactment of this ancient story. The small group of mortals, with their faith and their ritual, are the new Isis. and they are using their belief to reassemble the spiritual body of a god who was torn apart by the new digital chaos. Osiris's power is unleashed. It is not the raw, heavy power of Anubis, but a different kind of force. It is the power of order, of life, of a natural rhythm that cannot be corrupted. The CEO's digital fortress, his carefully constructed algorithms, his entire network begins to fail. The screens that once showed a cascade of data now show a torrent of green, of life. The servers begin to overheat. The fans worry frantically as they try to contain a power they cannot comprehend. The demigod's face, which was once so serene, is now a mask of fear. His power, a reflection of the chaos he created, is now powerless against the raw, uncompromising force of life. A bizarre and quirky detail of Osiris's mythology was the use of Osiris's bed small. Human-shaped clay pots filled with seeds and placed in tombs. The sprouts that grew from them symbolized Osiris's resurrection and the promise of rebirth. In the CEO's office, the screens which were once filled with algorithms and code now show a cascade of digital seeds of green. Vines and sprouting plants, a visual representation of the new life that is being born from the digital darkness. Osiris, a god of vegetation and rebirth, has returned. The question that hangs in the air, a question of both ancient justice and modern rebirth, is this: was this the end of the digital tyrant? Or had humanity simply awakened a god who was not yet ready to forgive? The silence that descends upon the CEO's office is not the gentle silence of a tomb, but the cold, digital stillness of a machine that has been unplugged. The digital demigod is gone, his flickering, malevolent consciousness scattered into a million meaningless data points. The screens are blank, the servers are silent, and the air is heavy with the ghostly residue of a battle that was not of flesh and blood, but of faith and code. The gods have won, but their victory is not a moment of triumph. It is a moment of profound and weary reckoning. Anubis, his strength slowly returning, rises to his feet. He looks at Osiris, who stands at the center of the silent room, his form no longer a spectral ghost, but a being of profound ethereal light. He is a god of life and death, of rebirth and decay, but he is weakened. His power, which was so absolute in the old world, is now a fragile, ethereal thing, a whisper in a world that has replaced whispers with noise. They have defeated the digital demigod, but the battle has shown them a terrible truth. They are not the masters of this new world. A mainstream historical fact of ancient Egypt is the ultimate decline of their pantheon. After the arrival of the Romans and the spread of Christianity, the old gods' names began to fade from the public consciousness. Their temples were abandoned, their rituals were forgotten, and their power, tied to the belief of mortals, slowly began to dissipate. This is the reality the gods are now facing. They have won a battle, but they have not won the war for humanity's soul. They are beings of profound cosmic importance, but they are now a part of a forgotten history, a relic of a world that no longer exists. Osiris looks at Anubis, his eyes filled with a sad, ancient wisdom. He knows they cannot stay. To exist in the open is to risk being commodified, to be turned into a brand, a product, a piece of digital ephemera. Their victory has shown them their vulnerability. They must retreat to the shadows, to the few remaining places of sacred silence, to the handful of believers who still hold on to the old ways. Their presence is now a fragile whisper, a quiet ghost that can be found only by those who are still looking for it. A bizarre and quirky detail of ancient Egyptian lore is the legend of the Eye of Horus. It was a powerful amulet, a symbol of protection, good health, and restoration. It was said to represent the mythical eye that Horus lost in a battle with Set, and that was later magically restored. As Osiris turns to leave, a single, small, and beautifully carved amulet of the Eye of Horus appears on the cold, sterile floor of the CEO's office. It is a subtle gesture, a final, quiet act of a god. It is a symbol of their lingering presence, a small piece of their power left behind for the world to find. It is a beacon of hope in a world that has forgotten the very meaning of the word. They are gone, their forms fading into the air, their presence, a quiet memory that lingers in the silence of the room. The world outside, the city of millions, is unaware of the cosmic battle that has just taken place. The gods have returned to the shadows, but their victory, a fragile, hard-won thing, has left behind a question. Was their presence now a forgotten memory? Quiet ghost that could be found in the silence between two breaths? Or was it just a matter of time before the digital chaos returned for them once more? The gods are gone. Their return to the shadows, a somber and final act. The world, utterly unaware of the spiritual war that was just fought and won on its behalf, continues to spin. We're back in the city, but you are not the same. You see the world differently now. You see the digital footprints, the subtle hum of the servers, the vacant stares of the people glued to their screens. You have seen the truth behind the curtain, and you are left with a new, terrifying responsibility: the choice to remember or to forget. The narrative ends, but the story for humanity is just beginning. The gods' victory was a fragile one. They defeated a mortal who had stolen a part of their power, but they did not defeat the technology that made it possible. They have retreated to the shadows, their existence a whispered legend, a ghost in the machine. But the digital world remains. The CEO's platform is still active, its algorithms still working, still harvesting and curating and manipulating the attention of billions. The gods have made their choice. They have chosen to return to a world of sacred silence, to the few who still believe. But humanity has yet to make its own choice. A mainstream historical fact of ancient Egypt is the shift in their religious landscape. Over time, the focus moved from the great pantheon to the worship of individual, more personal deities, and eventually to a monotheistic faith under the pharaoh Akhenaten. This historical precedent is playing out in the modern world. Humanity has moved from a collective belief in a pantheon of gods to an individual, personal worship of the self. A digital self that is curated and refined and displayed for all to see. The new monotheistic faith is not in a god, but in the algorithm, in the unseen power that feeds us what we want to hear. A bizarre and quirky detail of the ancient afterlife was the belief that the soul, in order to complete its journey, had to remember its name. A special spell from the Book of the Dead was needed to ensure the deceased would not forget who they were. In a world of digital fragmentation, of social media profiles and online personas, humanity is in danger of forgetting its own name. The digital demigod was not defeated by a god of death. He was defeated by a god of life, a god of order, and a handful of mortals who had not forgotten who they were. This is the new, quiet, profound battle. It is a battle for our very identity. The gods' retreat is a gamble. They are trusting that humanity will, in its own time, remember the old ways. They have left behind a few subtle clues, a few spiritual breadcrumbs for those who are looking. The Eye of Horus amulet in the CEO's office, the silent hum of the servers, the quiet wisdom in a handful of people. All of it is a part of a quiet, subtle magic that is still in the world waiting to be found. But the digital noise is louder than ever. The distractions are more profound. The world is addicted to a new kind of immortality, a new kind of truth. The final question for you, for me, and for every soul that has listened to this story is this: in a world that is so loud, in a world that promises to remember everything, what is a god to do when what humanity has chosen to forget is the one thing that will save it? Anubis waits in the desert's heart. He watches the skyline, a lonely god, his vigilance a warning of the delicate balance between myth and reality. The desert wind whispers across the sands, a sound that is both ancient and new. Anubis stands at the edge of the dunes, a lone, silent figure against the backdrop of a city that has forgotten his name. He is the god of the underworld, but he now has a new purpose. He is a sentinel, a ghost, a quiet reminder of a world that once was, and a warning of a world that is yet to come. The old battle has been won, but the war for humanity's soul is far from over. The final, lasting image of this story is not of a god in a temple, but of a god in the desert, a silent witness to a modern world that is slowly, unconsciously, forgetting its own past. Anubis is a lonely figure, but he is not defeated. His vigilance is a subtle presence, a quiet warning. The balance between myth and reality is a delicate thing. It is a balance between the sacred and the mundane, between the spiritual and the technological. And that balance is now held in the hands of humanity, a humanity that is still utterly unaware of the power it holds. A mainstream historical fact of ancient Egypt is the profound sense of cosmic order, of Mat, that governed their entire civilization. They believed that everything, from the pharaoh's rule to the rising of the sun, was a part of a divine cosmic balance that had to be maintained through ritual and belief. The modern world has replaced this belief with a new digital order, an order of algorithms and data. The gods' victory was a small act of restoring a tiny part of that balance, a quiet ripple in a vast ocean of chaos. A quirky and bizarre detail of ancient Egyptian mythology is the belief that the gods could take on animal forms, that their divine essence could inhabit a physical body. The soul of the bull was said to be the god Apis, and the soul of the ibis Thoth. This is a profound and strange truth. The gods were a part of the physical world. Now they are not. They are a part of a digital ether, a quiet ghost in the machine. Their presence is now a whisper, a silent prayer, a quiet ghost that can only be found by those who are still looking. Anubis waits. He is the god of the underworld, but he is also a god of truth, a guardian of memory. His existence is a testament to the fact that you can forget a god, but you cannot erase them. Their power is tied to your belief, and if you forget them, their power simply sleeps. But if you remember them, if you reach out, if you perform a small act of faith, that power can be awakened. The final question is not for a god, but for you. What will you do with this knowledge? Will you continue to live in the digital noise, or will you find the quiet, sacred places in your own life and remember the gods that are still waiting for you? The night settles over the desert. The city in the distance is a blinding, chaotic constellation of light. Anubis stands in the darkness, a lonely figure, a sentinel of a forgotten world. The wind whispers across the sand, a low, gentle sound, a calming lullaby that soothes the tired soul. The battle is over. The gods have retreated. The world, utterly unaware, is left to make its own choice. The great cosmic balance, which was once held by gods, is now held by a fragile, mortal hand. The story ends, but the feeling lingers. The truth you have heard is not a myth. It is a quiet, profound reality. The gods are still here. They are a part of the world, a part of the silence, a part of the shadows. And you, a fragile, mortal soul, are a part of their story. You are a part of a great cosmic drama that is still being written. The truth is out there, waiting for you. It is in the silent places, the quiet moments, the spaces between the digital noise. It is in the silence between two breaths. It is a beautiful, terrifying truth. Now, take a moment to breathe. The story is over. The tension is gone. The gods are safe, for now. Their power is a quiet, sleeping thing, waiting for you to awaken it. So, before you leave, before you return to the digital world, take a moment to look at the stars, to feel the wind, to remember the quiet places. The gods are still waiting. The story is still being written, and you, a single mortal soul, have a choice.